The sun was sinking low over the wide plains of Texas, painting the sky in gold and red. The land stretched far in every direction, quiet except for the sound of wind passing through tall grass. Michael rode his brown horse slowly, his hat tilted forward to keep the sun out of his eyes. He had spent the day rounding up cattle and fixing fences. His life was simple but hard. Every sunrise meant another long day on the ranch, and every sunset meant he had survived another one. Michael was known around the area as a quiet cowboy. He didn't talk much, but he was kind to people and animals. He worked alone most of the time, and that was how he liked it. There was something peaceful about the open land. But that evening, as he guided his horse toward the main road, something unexpected happened. A young calf had broken through the fence earlier that day, and he had gone to look for it. As he was heading back, the ground under his horse's hoof gave way near a small ditch. The horse stumbled. Michael tried to steady it, but it was too late. He fell hard onto the ground and a sharp pain shot up his leg. He let out a heavy breath, biting down as the pain grew worse. When he tried to stand, his leg wouldn't hold him. It was broken. He was miles away from the nearest house with no phone signal. The wind around him felt colder now, the open land suddenly too big and empty. Michael knew how dangerous this could be. Night was coming and he couldn't walk. He pulled himself up against a tree and waited, hoping someone would come down the dirt road. Hours passed slowly. The sky turned from orange to deep blue. Crickets began to sing and the air grew cool. Michael's horse had run off, but thankfully one of the ranch hands found him when they noticed he hadn't returned. They rushed him to a small town clinic about 10 miles away. That clinic was new to the town, and working inside it was Mei Lin. Mei Lin had come from China only a year before. She had grown up in a busy city with tall buildings, loud streets, and crowded buses. Now she found herself in a quiet Texas town with big skies and friendly but curious faces. She worked as a nurse and also practiced acupuncture, a skill she had learned from her grandmother. She loved helping people, but she sometimes felt far from home. The language was different, the food was different, and the faces around her were all unfamiliar. Still, she tried to smile every day and remind herself why she came, to build a new life and help others heal. When the ranch truck arrived at the clinic with Michael in the back, Mei Lin was the first to see him. He was tall, with a face burned, slightly red by the sun and hands rough from years of work. He tried to sit up, but the pain in his leg was too much. Mei Lin rushed over, her voice soft but sure. "Don't move. We'll help you," she said gently. Michael looked at her, surprised. Her accent was light and her smile was calm. In that moment, even through the pain, he noticed how kind her eyes were. She and the doctor carefully moved him to a bed. Mei Lin held his arm steady while they examined the leg. The break was clean, but serious. Michael clenched his jaw, trying not to show how much it hurt. He wasn't used to people taking care of him. Usually, he fixed his own problems, whether it was a broken fence or a bruised shoulder. But this time, he had no choice but to trust a stranger. For the next few hours, Mei Lin worked quietly. She cleaned the wound, supported the leg, and spoke to him in a calm tone, explaining each step. When the doctor left to get more supplies, she stayed with him, placing a warm cloth on his forehead. "You're strong," she said softly. "But strong people also need help sometimes." Michael didn't say much. Talking wasn't his way. But inside, something stirred. No one had said words like that to him in a long time. He watched her move around the small room, quick but gentle, careful but confident. She didn't see him as a cowboy or a stranger. She just saw a person who needed care. The night wore on, and the storm outside began to build. Rain hit the windows and wind howled against the door. The power flickered once, and Mei Lin quickly lit a small lamp on the bedside table. The warm glow filled the room. Michael lay there, listening to the sound of rain and Mei Lin's soft footsteps. He wasn't used to this kind of quiet care. He felt something he hadn't felt in years, a strange peace. When the treatment was done, Mei Lin prepared a cup of warm tea for him. "This will help you rest," she said, handing it to him. Her hands were small but steady. Michael held the cup carefully, "Thank you," he said in a low voice. It was only 2 words, but they carried weight. Mei Lin smiled in return, not expecting more. In the following days, Michael had to return to the clinic for checkups. He had no choice. He couldn't work until his leg healed. Each time he came in, Mei Lin greeted him with the same warm smile. She helped him walk with crutches, wrapped his bandages, and even used acupuncture to ease the pain. At first, Michael didn't believe in needles and pressure points, but after a few sessions, the pain was less sharp. He didn't say it out loud, but he trusted her hands completely. She would often tell him little stories while she worked, stories about her home in China, the sound of the night market, the smell of steamed buns, the bright red lanterns during festivals. Michael listened quietly. Sometimes, when she laughed softly, something in his chest felt warm. She didn't know it, but every story she told brought a little light into his world. Michael, too, began to share pieces of his life. He told her about the ranch, his horse, the early mornings, and the sound of cattle moving through the fields. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. Mei Lin listened with interest, her eyes wide like a child hearing a story for the first time. These small conversations became the best part of his week. One day, as Mei Lin was adjusting his bandage, Michael noticed the way a strand of her hair had fallen across her cheek. She tucked it behind her ear with a shy movement. For the first time in years, Michael felt nervous, not because of pain, but because someone had unknowingly stepped into his quiet world. She didn't realize it, but she was changing something inside him. For Mei Lin, Michael was just a patient. She treated many people every week, old farmers, young mothers, children with bruised knees. But there was something different about this cowboy. He didn't speak much, but his silence wasn't cold. It was calm. When he did speak, his words were simple and honest. She liked that. It made her feel safe. Their moments together weren't loud or dramatic. There were no grand gestures, just quiet exchanges, a smile, a nod, a shared laugh. But sometimes the quietest moments are the ones that stay in your heart the longest. By the time a month had passed, Michael's leg had begun to heal. He could walk slowly with a cane. The ranch hands teased him about how often he was eager to visit the clinic, but Michael just smiled and said nothing. In truth, it wasn't the medicine that drew him back, it was her. Mei Lin still didn't know. She didn't know that while she was simply doing her job, healing his body, she had also healed something inside his heart. A man who had spent years alone had started to feel something new. It was gentle, warm, and quiet, just like her. And though neither of them said anything yet, the story between them had already begun. The sun was warm and bright the day Michael walked into the clinic without crutches for the first time. His leg wasn't fully strong yet, but it was healing fast. The cowboy hat sat neatly on his head and a small smile played on his face, a smile he didn't even know he was wearing. He had spent many weeks at the clinic, and though he told everyone it was just for checkups, deep down he knew it was something else that brought him there. Mei Lin was arranging some bottles on a shelf when she saw him. She turned, surprised to see him standing taller than before with no crutches under his arms. Her face lit up with a warm smile, the kind that made a quiet room feel brighter. "You're walking," she said, clapping her hands softly. Michael chuckled. "Thanks to you," he said simply. She waved a hand. "No thanks to your strong bones. I only helped a little." But inside she felt a quiet happiness. It wasn't just about seeing a patient recover. It was the bond they had built through every visit, every small conversation, every shared smile. Michael sat on the edge of the bed like he had many times before. Mei Lin checked his leg carefully, touching gently, making sure the bone was healing correctly. The way she worked was always calm, never rushed. She had a way of making every person in the room feel safe. Michael watched her hands, then her face. She didn't know it, but each small movement she made had found a place in his memory. After the checkup, Mei Lin gave him a small booklet of exercises to help strengthen his leg. "If you do these, you'll be riding your horse again in no time," she said with a light laugh. Michael nodded, but he wasn't really thinking about horses. He was thinking about how different his life had felt since the day he met her. A few days later, Michael returned, not for a checkup this time, but with something hidden behind his back. He walked through the clinic door a little nervous, though he wasn't the kind of man who got nervous easily. Maylin looked up, surprised again. "Another checkup?" she asked. He shook his head and pulled out a small bouquet of wildflowers. They weren't fancy, just bright yellow and white flowers he had picked from the fields near his ranch. "For you," he said softly. Maylin froze for a second. No one had ever brought her flowers before, not here. She slowly took them, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "I picked them myself," Michael said. "Thought you might like them." She smiled, her cheeks turning slightly pink. "I do. Thank you." She found a small jar and placed the flowers in water, setting them on her desk. Suddenly, the little clinic felt warmer, as if the flowers carried a piece of the Texas sun with them. From that day, something changed. Their conversations grew a little longer. Michael stayed a little after his visits, talking about the horses, the fields, and the stars over the ranch. Maylin began telling him more about her life, too. How she used to sit on her grandmother's porch back in China, watching paper lanterns float in the night sky. She told him how strange it felt to be far from home, but also how grateful she was to meet kind people in this new place. Michael listened to every word. He wasn't a man of many speeches, but when he spoke, it was honest and simple. "You make this place feel different," he told her one afternoon. She looked at him, puzzled. "Different how?" "Like it's not just a town anymore," he said. "Like it's home." She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled, a soft, quiet smile that said more than words could. One weekend, Maylin closed the clinic early. She had been working for weeks without a break. When she stepped outside, she found Michael leaning against a fence near his truck. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. He shrugged lightly. "Thought maybe you'd like a ride. Just out to the ranch. You've spent too much time inside this place." She hesitated for a moment. She had never been to a ranch before. But something in his voice felt safe, not pushy or loud, just gentle. So she agreed. The drive to the ranch was quiet at first, but it was a comfortable kind of quiet. The open fields rolled out endlessly in front of them. Cows grazed lazily in the distance. When they arrived, Maylin stepped out of the truck and looked around with wide eyes. The air was fresh and cool, and the sky stretched so far it felt endless. Michael showed her the stables and introduced her to his horse, a big brown stallion with a white patch on its nose. "His name's Thunder," Michael said. Maylin laughed softly. "He looks more like a gentle cloud," she joked. Michael chuckled, a deep, warm sound. He couldn't remember the last time someone made him laugh like that. They walked through the fields as the sun began to set. The sky turned soft orange and pink. Michael told her about how he grew up there, about the nights he'd fall asleep listening to the wind, about the stars that seemed close enough to touch. Maylin shared stories of her city, where the night was full of lights but not stars. "It's so quiet here," she said softly, looking up at the sky. "Yeah," Michael answered. "It's the kind of quiet that stays with you." In that silence, something unspoken passed between them. They didn't need to say it out loud. Sometimes hearts understand things before words ever come. Days turned into weeks. Michael's leg grew stronger, but something else grew too, a bond neither of them had planned. He started visiting the clinic even when he didn't have to, bringing small things from the ranch. Honey from a neighbor's farm, a handmade wooden charm, sometimes just his quiet company. Maylin began to wait for those visits without realizing it. Her days felt different when he was around, lighter, warmer. One evening it rained again, just like the night they first met. Maylin was closing the clinic when Michael arrived, his hat wet, his boots muddy. "You'll catch a cold," she said, rushing to hand him a towel. "I didn't come for a checkup," he said softly, brushing water from his face. "I came to tell you something." Her heart skipped. She didn't know why. She looked at him, waiting. "I don't talk fancy," he began slowly. "I don't have big words. But ever since you came into my life, things feel different, better. Like the world isn't so empty anymore. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but you're important to me, Maylin. More than I ever expected." The room fell silent, except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. Maylin felt her chest tighten in a way that wasn't frightening. It was warm. She had never expected anything like this when she came to this town. She had only wanted a fresh start. But somewhere between healing a cowboy's broken leg and sharing quiet evenings, her heart had found a place to rest. She stepped closer, her hands holding the towel nervously. "You don't need big words," she whispered. I understand. Michael looked at her with steady, honest eyes. I'll wait for your answer. As long as it takes. Her heart softened even more at those words. He wasn't asking for a fairy tale. He wasn't promising the world. He was simply giving her his truth. Weeks passed and they spent more time together, riding through fields, watching sunsets, talking under stars. Michael showed her how to ride a horse. She showed him how to make dumplings from her grandmother's recipe. Two different worlds slowly blended into something new. People in town started noticing. They saw the way Michael's face changed when he talked about her. They saw the light in Maylin's eyes when she mentioned the ranch. But for the two of them, it didn't matter what others thought. What mattered was the quiet understanding between them, the kind that doesn't need many words. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and fireflies danced in the fields, Michael took her hand gently. When you first healed my leg, I thought it was just my body that was broken, he said softly. But I guess my heart needed healing too, and you did that without even knowing. Tears filled Maylin's eyes, not from sadness but from the soft weight of his honesty. She had come to this place alone, unsure of where she belonged. Now standing beside him, she felt like she had found a place not just to live but to feel alive. She squeezed his hand and whispered, "And you healed me too." In the quiet of the open field, with the stars above them and the warm air around them, their story continued, not with loud promises or perfect plans, but with something real. Something steady. A love that had grown slowly, gently like flowers in the sun, and though neither of them had expected it, they both knew this was only the beginning of something that would last.